So, all right. So it says we're live. Generally, there's some kind of a lag or something like that. So we'll see what actually happens. But if you guys can hear us and see us, please let me know in the chat. Let me know if we look good, sound good, all those things. And looking good is meaning, does the video quality look good and not your personal opinion as to our appearances, because I just don't need that, okay? All right, so it looks like we are good to go. I am here tonight with Mike from Asymmetrical Preparedness. If you do not know about Asymmetrical Preparedness, it is a channel where you will get daily content about how you can be better prepared every single day. So, Mike, welcome to the show tonight.
Hey, everybody.
Yep.
It's good to be here.
And, if you guys don't know this, Mike and I started this YouTube thing kind of around the same time. It was actually right back in 2019, right?
Yep.
So been around since, before all the stuff in 2020. and we're still doing it. So it's very cool to have you here. I've watched your channel for a long time, still watching your channel. And why don't you go ahead and just kind of tell people about yourself a little bit, tell people, what kind of content you make, and then maybe a little bit about your background if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, and from almost the very beginning, I guess we probably we started around the same time. We probably found each other's channels around the same time because I've been watching you for quite a while, even though I don't get as much time as I wish I could to watch YouTube. I'm kind of like low information because I'm so busy doing everything else and actually doing the preparedness things and stuff. So that's what I do kind of on my channel. I try to do talk about things from a perspective of peace of mind, not fear. Although I still do throw those catchy thumbnails up sometimes and stuff like that to get the attention, to reach people. Yeah, but I really like, the idea of homesteading and being self-reliant and self-sufficiency, all that kind of stuff, growing your own food, raising your own animals. Obviously, there's times a year where I show more of that. This is not one of them because I'm wrapping up my garden. However, pretty soon I have some Jerusalem artichokes. If anybody's heard of those sunchokes that are ready to harvest. So I'll do a video about harvesting them. I think it's going to be a really good harvest of those this year. And I talk about those on video also some. But yeah, I kind of approach things I try to get a variety and talk about a lot of different things. My experience with preparedness is I kind of got on board with prepping 1999, the Y2K thing. Wasn't worried about the computers. I just thought that dumb people would do dumb things. Yep. So I saw that, and then I kind of fell off the wagon for a while and then got back on probably, I don't know, maybe a year or two before like Obama administration came in, and then kind of upped my game when he came in, thinking that things could potentially be really bad for us, which they were bad. They weren't as bad as I thought they could be, but we all got through it. Yeah, I was in the military for 20 years, U.S. Navy. I did a lot of different kinds of things. I don't like really talking about that. I don't really feel, a lot of people, I get called out all the time, oh, you're an airsofter, weekend, fake warrior, all this stuff like that. Okay, well, yeah, I don't have to justify myself. I have the experience. I have the knowledge. I do excel in security and security related stuff though, mostly, as well as like personal protective details and things along those lines, firearms, tactical gear setups, etc. Yeah, and I wish I could talk about that all the time, but here on YouTube,
hey, listen, and like you say, you don't have to justify yourself to anybody, but having that background is a very cool thing in the sense of being able to share certain types of knowledge with people who haven't had that experience before, and I think that that's something that a lot of people can respect is, actual experience in those departments is something that a lot of us lack, and I think is something that, we have to be very humble about when we're learning from someone who has been there before. So, one thing I will say about watching your channel and things that you do is that you are constantly busy. Like you're constantly gardening or constantly working on the next project. And I think that something I just want everyone here in the chat to know is that Mike has a great way of kind of making every day another step towards preparedness without it being overwhelming, because it can be really overwhelming to think, okay, well, I don't get paid again for 2 weeks and I really can't afford any more food until then. And yet I only have, my 2 week supply. So basically, if I never get that next paycheck, we're done for, right? But I think, Mike, you do a good job of kind of reminding people like, hey, it's, every day you can just do one little thing. And man, I think like the stuff you talk about goes extremely practical, anywhere from like, your shoes to like, making sure you have like the right EDC and stuff like that. So, what is it that like you would suggest to like some of the new people here in the prepping community about how to not get overwhelmed and how to just take like small steps on a daily basis,
Well, kind of along the lines of, like when you're preparing for a mission in the military, planning is big time. Looking at what you have, deciding where you want to be, and then making a plan for that, budgeting for it, keeping a prepper notebook, keeping track of your strengths, your weaknesses. And one of the biggest things is being honest with yourself, being honest with your abilities. Don't get caught up in the track that you're more of a bad A than you actually are in real life. A lot of people get caught up in thinking, oh, I'm this big tough guy and stuff. And, being honest with yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, that's very important. And deciding a path forward, trying to also setting like your end goal and intermediate goals along the way. And understanding the fact that, yes, there are people out there that have years and years of food and have been doing this for 20 years and that are way more prepared than you are, but it's okay. Don't worry about that. Just do a little bit at a time. Just keep on a little every day, pretty much, and you'll get there.
Yeah.
That's pretty much.
I mean, it makes sense. And I think it's a little bit hard for somebody who's brand new to the genre to see it that way, because when you first jump into preparedness, there's such a huge list of things that you don't have that you are told basically, that you need. And it gets, it can be a little bit, daunting, because if somebody comes in and says, all right, you need a generator, you need, protection, and you need, 6 months of food, go get it. And then you realize how expensive that is or how much energy that's going to take. It can almost feel impossible. So I think it's awesome that you try to take that approach, break it down, and just give people small, like bite-sized morsels of preparedness that they can work with like anytime, and if you're ever, lacking that motivation, you can go to Asymmetrical Preparedness and watch 1,000 videos, and you'll know how to do things. Because that's one thing I will say, and you guys can hear it directly from me, but Mike works way harder than I do. And you have like 1,200 videos on your channel, and I have like 350. And it's just like every day you've got something else to put out there that can help somebody. And I really respect that, because I know how much work this is, and it's I mean, I just like you're crazy, man,
Yeah, that's one thing. Maybe I'm doing something wrong then, because you skyrocketed with way less videos. But hey, that's totally awesome. I love it when the community grows, when everybody in the community goes. That's one thing I despise, are haters, people that hate on somebody for their success. I think it's awesome. If everybody goes to 500,000 subscribers and I stay at 20,000, I don't care. I think it's awesome. And that's what we need as community, because you getting more subscribers, TJ getting more subscribers, anybody getting more subscribers builds the community in general, and it'll trickle down to me. I just have to be patient and work hard.
You're rolling with the Reaganomics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I do want to get in the chat real quick just to say hello to some people. We try to get into that, but I wanted to get the conversation rolling, first, and just make sure everybody, questions you might have for Mike or myself, please leave them in the chat. Make sure you highlight me or Asymmetrical Preparedness, so that way we see it. It's a little bit easier for me to see the orange highlighted lettering that, makes me know it's a question instead of trying to search all the time. But let's see here. I'm going to say hello to some people. Tasha, hello, good to see you. Harry Sachs is here, good to see you. Let's see, I'm trying to See all the usuals. We got Network Prepper is here. Exile Reviews, good to see you. Let's see, Nurso One Piece, and there's a bunch more, of course. But Oi de Duriant, I'm trying to say it better every single time. So good to see you. I think I did pretty good that time. All right. Liberty Off-Road and Old Marine, always good to see everybody. And thank you guys so much for being here. I do want to let you know. So stick around for the chat because I do have some announcements tonight that are very cool. And with what Mike was saying about like growing the community and building the network and getting everybody on board, and like, the bigger we all grow together, the better prepared we are as a full community. I do have some awesome networking things and community related stuff that we're going to talk about tonight coming up. So just make sure you stick around for that. But I want to make sure to, get you guys introduced to Mike and everything first and kind of just talk about some stuff. So Destiny Troll, thank you so much for the super chat. Just dropping by to say hi. Excellent work as always. Hey, I appreciate that. And honestly, nights like tonight are easy when I have a guest like Mike here to kind of help fill the void and fill the downtime when, usually if it's just me, I'm like, all right, I got to share pertinent information and in a way that makes it so you guys don't go to sleep. And that can be hard,
Yeah.
So let's see. And SHTFT Prepper says, I've watched all the channels grow over the last year. And that's true. And I'll be honest with you, Mike and I both started in 2019, and I'm sure both of us experienced a similar bump during 2020 for the obvious reasons. A lot of the general population suddenly realized that preparedness might be actually important, and it might be something they want to be a part of. So I think that's a good thing, and I think that every voice that's out there that tries to not necessarily teach preparedness, but at least just share ideas, has a different I guess you would say attraction for different, people. So when somebody might watch my channel and then might watch Mike's channel and decide they like Mike better because of his presentation or his demeanor or whatever it is, and that's totally fine, because as long as you're getting the information from a source that is easily digestible, then, that's where we want to be. So it's good to have more and more people out there doing this,
Mm-hmm.
Got a couple questions coming in here. And so a Gate Beowulf says, what are your thoughts about the current inflation in America? I'm afraid things are as bad in my country. So Mike, what are your thoughts about the level of inflation we're seeing right now and where it's heading? And, how do you think this is going to go? Like, where does the inflation stop? I mean, what causes it to actually stop, right? I mean, I don't even know the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's the only one that knows, but, what do I think is going to happen and where do I think it's going to go? And I'm not saying this to be fear porn at all, but I'm 99.99% sure that we're headed for economic collapse. It is what it is. And we got shrinkflation, we got inflation, we got national debt that is completely untenable. I mean, I don't even know what it is now. I haven't paid attention to it, but it's astronomical. It's bigger. It's a bigger number than the number I knew last. And I know that if every single American had to pay their part to pay that off, I mean, we would have to tighten the purse strings and tighten our belts so tight for so long that life would be so horrible to actually get that paid down slightly, even halfway.
Yep.
It's just, it's insane. I mean, I hate to say it because I don't like being all scary fear and stuff like that, but it is what it is. I mean, it's real.
Well, and here's the thing. I think this is something that a lot of us can agree on, but just because you say something that has truth behind it, and just because you say something that just is a observation of the current state of affairs doesn't necessarily mean it is irrational or fear instigating or anything like that. I think that that is a knee-jerk reaction to people who don't want to face reality at times. So it's easy to say, this is sensationalism, because what we're talking about seems unbelievable, especially to those people who live in the United States and have had comfortable lives up until, maybe recently or whatever it might be. So it's easier to dismiss it and just say, no, that's sensationalism. But at the end of the day, it's hard to not look at where we are right now and assume that, there has to be almost a crash before there can be any kind of rebuilding,
Yeah. Yeah, I've been, my time in the military, I've been to almost, I don't even know, I can't lost track, but almost every country on this green earth. And yeah, I've seen a lot. And I've seen economic collapses. I've seen way more tyrannical governments. I've seen a lot of stuff. And we are very blessed here. And people need to remember that first off. As many problems as we have, as many issues, as much as we're going through, we still have it relatively easy and very, very cush. I guess I don't know. I'm searching for the word. Cush life, I guess. We have it easy here.
Yeah, a high quality of life.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say, your experience seeing all those different countries and different types of governments and everything else could definitely give you that perspective for you not being irrational when it comes to your thought process of where we're going. One thing that I've always kind of clung on to about your channel and something that you talk about regularly is that you prep out of peace of mind, not out of fear, right? And it's about wanting to feel comfortable and knowing that if things happen that you're prepared and that you don't have to be stressed about it. And I think that's very important. So when you start talking about things in the manner that you just did, it's like, look, you're not being fearful, you're just being realistic. And that's actually almost worse,
Yeah.
So,
keeping it real and talking about real things, I think, is important.
Yeah. And that's, these days you have to be honest about the way things are, So I do see we got a couple other people in here. I got a couple other questions. Nurse 01P said, how long does kerosene last? And the internet says 5 years. So, every fuel eventually degrades. But at the end of the day, just for my personal thought process is if I'm storing fuel, it's probably propane just because of how long it stores and how easily it stores and how efficient it is. So that's just my thought. I don't know what you think about that, Mike. I know we live in different environments, but you're in a cold environment as well, I assume.
Oh yeah, it's here we usually have a couple weeks in the 20s. No, we don't. It's not hardcore. It's not like negative 18 degrees or anything like that here. But right now it's about 40 degrees outside right now. I'm sitting on my veranda, so that's why I'm all bundled up. I got like 7 layers of clothing on right now, so I don't freeze, and my snow pants on. Because I haven't established a good place inside my house to do videoing and stuff like that. And I got kids and dogs and stuff like that. And I try to get that quiet and separate family from work. It's like, Daddy's got to go to work now. This is my work. We got to take it seriously because we got to be able to pay the bills and feed the family. And since I, don't go to work anymore, which I'm sure you heard that whole story, don't really want to go back into that again, but I'm trying to make it work here. So,
well, let's just say a lot of Americans are experiencing a similar situation these days where they are no longer welcome where they used to work based on a lot of different factors, which is unfortunate. And I think that a lot of people can share in that sentiment, Tom F, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Let's see. I got a few others coming through. And then, there's so much going on right now that it's hard not to get into every singular event that's happening. Okay. And we have the, national attention on the court case right now. We have what's happening in foreign affairs over in Eastern Europe. We have, the constant escalation over in the Pacific. And it's sometimes hard to really keep your eye on the ball because there's so many different scenarios that are occurring simultaneously. But I think that with some of these distractions, the thing that, we really should still be paying attention to the most, like you said, is the economy. And now with this infrastructure bill going into place with more money that doesn't exist, it just seems like there's no longer a reason to pay attention to the debt because it doesn't exist. That's just kind of how it seems at this point, or at least how it's being treated. So with that happening, that's the inevitable outcome is a collapse, I would assume, or a huge crash of some kind. I mean, you can't, guarantee one or the other, but I don't know what else to think about that,
Yeah. Sometimes, especially recently, there is so much going on in the world that, I'm working a lot because, I mean, not only do I do all the YouTube stuff, all the gardening stuff, all the prepping stuff, but my wife has lupus, and a lot of days she is just sitting on the couch. She can't even get off the couch or get out of bed because she's in so much pain and she hurts so bad. So taking care of kids, taking care of animals, all that stuff like that. So keeping track of things, a lot of times I just lose interest. I just turn off everything. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care what's going on in the world. I'm just going to talk about the things that I feel are important for people to know for preparedness. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to do what I need to do, and just whatever happens, happens. I mean,
well, and that's why you prepare, because then whatever happens, you still have what you have figured out. And honestly, I mean, that's the best we can do. So, I will say, let's see here. Okay, so I want to say hi to the mods real quick. Got Northern Girl Hobbies here, Gray Man Prepping. We got Prepper Now. Let's see. And, I'm almost wondering, I thought, and I got Rip Curl. Okay, cool. So for a second, I was like, wait, Rip Curl's not a mod, but he is. We're good. All right. So I do appreciate the mods being here. Thank you all for being here and helping out. Much appreciated. And let's see here.
While you're doing that, one sec.
Yep.
I gotta go add a layer. It is pretty cold out here.
You're good, man. No worries. So just so everybody is aware here, I am, announcing some networking opportunities here in a little bit halfway through the stream, we'll say, just because, I want to keep talking to Mike for a little bit and, not get everybody off topic. But there are some opportunities coming up for us to have a better and stronger community. And at the same time, possibly an opportunity to come meet me if you guys want to. So that's up to you. But it also depends on, where you live. So because I'm not going everywhere. I promise you on that. So and I'll answer this super chat real quick while Mike has to step out. Nick Johnson said, it's a good idea to stick to have multiple platforms or stick to the same when it comes to pistols. And I'll just tell you, I have pretty much the exact same thing you're talking about there, between those two different manufacturers. I have both. And it's just depending on application. So in general, I don't see there being any issue with it, but I do try to standardize as much as I can just because of compatibility and the ability to swap things like mags and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. But there are things like, the 365, which is much smaller, which is why I have one, because it's easier to carry than anything, that I can get from any other manufacturer, really, in that sense. Or at least regarding your question, and then it allows me to have that option to have something extremely small that doesn't print. So that's why I have both, and that's why I don't think it's a bad idea. But just don't get too crazy and have like 50 different types, and then you have to get different accessories for everything, different mags, different holsters, and it just gets out of control. So I try to keep standardized as best I can, okay? Okay, so Mike, you're back, you're warmer, and that's important. And because you just went and put on a jacket, I do want to address this question really quick. It's from Rock Prep 11. What are your thoughts on a dark winter for 21 to 22 and weaponized smallpox? Which I've heard inklings about that, but I would say anything regarding that kind of concept when it comes to anything biologic at this point. It's always going to be a possibility, and it's been a possibility forever at this point. We just have to be ready for it at a certain level all the time, regardless of, season or regardless of information that's out currently. We've heard about this kind of stuff from Ebola to everything else for a long time now. But what I will say is the whole dark winter thing, and Mike, you can comment on this as well, but I doubt we're going to have a winter in the next few years that won't be referred to as a possible dark winter. I think that at this point in time, we're going to experience power outages. We've seen what winter storms can do to places that aren't necessarily prepared for them. And we know that the response from emergency services and stuff is just not capable of taking care of everyone. So whether you're talking the economy, whether you're talking about the fragility of the grid or whatever it is, I feel like every winter from now on, for a while at least, is going to be referred to as a possible dark winter. I don't know. What do you think of that, Mike?
Yeah, I see. Winter is a good time to exert more control over people that are unprepared, because it's colder, it's more difficult. Things are, things are more difficult in the wintertime. And I think that, yeah, like we saw in Texas last year, I see potential for grids to go down, whether they are, a tree hits the lines or somebody does something else. I don't know.
Well,
but I think it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, there was that recent issue with the drone that was trying to short out a power station utilizing, I believe it was like copper wires it had hanging from it or something along those lines. So, and I mean, and I agree with you, winter is the time to exert your power over people because so many people are dependent on the grid to survive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I pretty much, EMP is something we talk about a lot in this community also. I pretty much plan on, I try to prepare myself to be living off grid. I don't plan on having power, and I also don't plan on having my vehicles. If I do, bonus. But if we prepare with those things in mind, then you're better off. And like I said, bonus if not.
Fair enough. And that's still a large uncertainty when you talk about things like EMP. We're still, there's no 100% certainty as to what exact electronics thing will be affected,
Yeah.
So much goes into that whole concept that it is hard to just say, I've got it all wrapped up, because you don't know. You really don't at the end of the day.
Yeah, a lot of people think that EMP is just like end all be all electronics are fried. That's not the case at all whatsoever. Different, topography affects it. Trees around you can affect it. If you have a metal roof on your house, could affect it. If your vehicle is parked in a garage or outside, can affect it. There's a lot of different things. And even if you have a brand new vehicle, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be affected. I mean, it could be, or you can go the 100% route and get an old, 70 something vehicle that doesn't have electronics, and you're good. Yeah. So it's all your choice.
I will say, Minuteman 69 said 150 years ago, every winter was a dark winter because they didn't have all the modern conveniences that we have today. And exactly, 100%. Back then, every summer was about preparing for the winter, and then, now that we've gone away from those concepts, people are just expecting life as usual to go on no matter what. And then it just suddenly doesn't, and things become very difficult very quickly. And Rob Believer, howdy, your first live stream. So welcome. And, I appreciate when everybody, tries it out for their first time. So thanks for being here. And I'm glad you came on tonight. Got a great guest, and I think we're having a decent conversation. So I do want to say, I have the announcements I want to make real quick because we're out at the halfway point, Mike, and I just figure I'll let everybody know. So Mike and I kind of were just talking earlier about how the community growing is good. It's important. It helps us be stronger. It also helps get more of the word of preparedness out, and it helps people be better prepared because, you might be a prepper, but by hearing other perspectives and other ideas, it helps you grow. And I mean, 100% that's applied to me. Listening to other channels talk about what they do and how they approach different challenges has definitely changed my mind about certain things that I used to do in the past. So I think it's very important. And what I want you all to know is that I have recently opened up the Discord to the public. Okay, so we have a public Discord now that is based off of a preparedness network. So I still have the private channels on the Discord for Patreons and for members of the channel here on YouTube. And that's just as a perk for those people that want to have, I guess, some skin in the game in the sense that they're supporting the channel monetarily on a monthly basis. So I give them a little bit of a more private chat room to have, I guess you might say. But in general, I don't feel like we should charge for everyone to be able to talk to each other, of course. And I want this community to grow. So I'm opening up the Discord to the public, to all of you, and it has channels for every single state listed on it. So that way you can post in those channels and see if there's other people that are in your area and try to network with those people. So that is something I'm rolling out tonight. I definitely hope that many of you join me over there, and now we can talk and discuss preparedness and talk about all kinds of stuff related to it. Here is the link right now in the chat. That takes you to the Discord landing page or the general chat or whatever it does, and we can get started with this thing. And if you want to go to my website, magicprepper.com, there is a link to it on the front page there as well. So hopefully this helps everybody communicate, helps everybody kind of get a way to talk outside of YouTube and a way to kind of keep tabs on things that are going on in the world. We don't know when this platform might get shut down. We don't know when creators like Mike or myself might get shut down. And we definitely don't know if, YouTube as a whole might get shut down. I mean, and I'm not saying, business wise, but we've seen what happens with cyber attacks. We've seen what's happened with other platforms like Facebook going out for 24 hours or whatever it is. So if we need to get messages out to each other, this is an alternative way to do it. And hopefully this can kind of get some things going. So I thought that might as well, let's just do it, roll it out, get some people on board and get some people networking, especially within their own state.
Yeah, it's funny. People ask me about Discord, and I'm not. I don't even know what Discord is. I'm not Mr. Tech. I'm not technologically savvy. It's
not for everybody, and it's not a necessity. But as with an alternative form of communication, it's something that's accessible, it's free, and people can join as many channels on there as they want, just like they can subscribe to as many channels here on YouTube as they want. So kind of works out, and hopefully you guys have a good time, and we can chat and make it happen. The other announcement I want to make is that if you guys, for any reason, out of your right mind, ever wanted to actually meet me in real life, okay, because that's that's at your own risk kind of a deal. But I will be hanging out at the Minot Rifle and Pistol Club Gun Show in Minot, North Dakota on November 28th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's on a Sunday, and it is at the North Dakota State Fair Center. So I will be there. I'll post about it on social media, on like Facebook and stuff, just to kind of like remind everybody as it gets closer. But I have the buddies of mine from the Concealed Journey, which is a training group out here in North Dakota that trains firearms and medical and all kinds of stuff. I'll be hanging out with them at their booth, and I figured I'd just kick it with those guys, hang out at the gun show. It's where I want to go anyway, so it works out. And then, let you guys know in case you want to come say hi. Why not? Figure it's a good place to meet people, and it's my kind of people usually at those places. So, all right. So now you guys know. I told you about it. You can't say I didn't say it. Okay. All right, and I do want to let everyone else know too that you can come verify that my hair streak is real and that I really am 6'3" now. So it's not just a lie, okay? All right, so Mike, let's get back into preparedness. That was enough announcements. I felt like I was back in Boy Scouts doing announcements once again, So when it comes to what you're kind of working towards is, I know that you live more rural. I can understand that just kind of from watching your videos. Are you working towards a fully self-reliant kind of off-grid status, or are you trying to just supplement, what you have access to now, or what's kind of your thought process?
Well, short-term goals are always just to improve and add on. Long-term goals, no, we're not going to go off-grid here, but we have a primary bug out. Our primary bug out location is we've actually thought about maybe selling this property and just moving up there full time, because it is way off grid and it is way out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, zero population density. But then there's runs into challenges. There is water, which wells are expensive, which we sold this house, we could afford that, stuff like that. But much harsher winters, much harsher summers, elevation. There's different things to play into. But what we're doing here is, I think we'll probably just stay here. We're looking at doing different things, like the area I film and people see on for our garden area. They see the blackberries as kind of like my security barrier, and that's kind of like the edge of this level field that the main house is on. So we're actually going to have buddies, construction buddies that have excavators, stuff like that. So what we're probably going to do is build a retaining wall about another 50 feet out and then backfill with dirt. So we'll have probably about 3 to 4 times the amount of land area right here to garden and
Nice.
to raise animals on. So we're probably going to, increase our garden space at least 5-fold. And since we don't have any animals currently, add in chickens, ducks, turkeys, maybe some goats, stuff like that, and make this as self-sustainable as possible, understanding that we're not off grid, basically just doing it the best we can. And then having the other as an option.
And I like that concept of having like the border of the blackberry bushes, because nobody wants to crawl around in that,
No.
But
No.
it is, it's cool that you have almost like a natural deterrent, just because of being strategic about where those bushes are. So that's very cool, and the fact that you can expand and kind of keep gardening. It is something I think a lot of people want to do, like the full off-grid thing and stuff like that, but it is a lot more difficult than it sounds, especially, not just related to, cultivating the land and stuff like that, but just relating to still earning an income and still figuring out a way to, be part of society to some level, I guess, in order to kind of maintain networking and stuff like that. But then at the same time, be completely off grid. It's a hard balance to hit. And it's hard to convince your whole family that that's the way to live. And it's just, there's a lot to it. So I think that, people would do well to kind of, hear what you just said and like still conceptualize the idea that where you are probably has still more potential that you could tap into to try to expand your ability, versus like always just hoping to be at that next place, in the middle of nowhere that, may or may not be sustainable or even exist at any point,
Yep. And that's and other people, the importance of having, like you were just saying, staying, making do with where you are and stuff like that, improving on it is a really good thing. And then I hope most people are planning on plan A, I feel should always be to shelter in place, to stay where you are. Bugging out is not a good option. I mean, militarily speaking, stuff I've seen around the world and stuff like that, there's a lot of variables that you don't even think about. However, if you do have primary, secondary, up to as many different options as you can for bugging out, that is very good, because hopefully you guys are forming groups. I have a very, very good group, a hardcore group. I have a group of people that every single one of them would give me the shirt off their back if that's the last shirt they had. We are there for each other constantly. We train with each other constantly. We help each other out constantly. We do all these things constantly, and we have multiple bug out locations. So if something happened, we would bug out en masse as a group and have a very sustainable, very defensible position. So I hope that people are working. I'm not saying that to, make myself sound cool. I'm not saying that to make anybody that doesn't have a group feel bad. I hope that people are working towards that, though. I was very blessed with, my group is amazing. That's one reason why I talked about, people probably saw in videos talking about moving to Oklahoma. Well, that fell apart due to other reasons. But yeah, I don't know if, I don't like a lot of things about this state, but I don't know if you could drag me away from here now, because the group.
And, let's be honest, having a community or a mag or something along those lines is more valuable than a lot of things, like, more valuable than, maybe even some of the firearms laws that you would find in a different state. I mean, I think people underestimate how important having that community or network can be. And it's something that if you're not in one, it's easy to kind of look at it as saying like, well, it'd be nice, but you know, if I find one, I do. If I don't, I don't. But once you start getting involved with a group of people, you start realizing quickly how easily they can become organized and how focused they can be on surviving and, you know, moving forward during a disaster. And then what you realize is that there's groups all around you that you didn't know about who will easily harness power over you if they decide to. And that's not necessarily trying to say that that's what groups are out there to do. However, if you find yourself in a situation where it's you against a group of some kind due to some kind of logistical issue or who knows what creates that situation, you're not in a good position at that point. And, you know, I just from my networking with local, you know, groups and stuff in this area, you know, things were brought to my attention I wasn't even aware of about, you know, other groups within the area that exist already that I didn't even know were here. And next thing you know, it's like, I'm over here pretending that it's okay to be by yourself. And then you find out, well, there's a group of like 50 people a quarter mile down the road that if, you know, SHTF happens are going to like just handle whatever they got to do to keep their people alive. And then you're just in the way now, you know? And I think that that's something to really keep in mind. It's not about them being, you know, what's the word, aggressive or anything like that. It's more about the fact that, you know, if you're not part of that before SHTF happens, now you're just a variable. You're just an unknown variable that could become a risk to them, which then puts you in a category of, you know, possible threat.
Yeah, well, it's better to approach anything from a position of power. I mean,
right.
With the understanding that everybody in my group is on board with being moral, being ethical, taking care of people. But it is also good to have a position of power, you know, because we got to take care of ourselves first. And I don't see a situation really that would make us de-evolve or go have to exert our force over others. I mean, we, you know, plan on using it for good only. But if you're in that position, at least you have that position of power to use for good.
Right. Right. Because that's not everybody's game plan. Let's be honest. You know, there are a lot of predatory people out there that will immediately jump on the lack of rule of law in order to implement their will on others. You know, we already know that's true. You've seen what happens during, you know, riots and stuff like that that go on. You know, once the police force shows that they're going to stand down, people then feel free to act in whatever manner they decide, you know. And that's just a small taste of what it would be like without any kind of law.
Yeah.
So like OP Raider 357 said, the fact of the matter is during a Mad Max scenario, no one is going to survive alone without a small community mag or whatever you might want to call it. And, you know, I think that, you know, we've discussed that many times here, but yeah, it's true. And I think that a lone wolf situation could definitely last quite a while depending on ability. But there's an expiration date on it, or at least you would assume there is, you know, because at some point you might need help, and where you find it could be the difference of whether or not you make it out of there, you know?
Yeah, no matter how equipped you are, no matter how skilled you are, you could be walking through the woods, twist your ankle, break your ankle, stuff like that, and then you're stuck, and then you're dead.
Yeah.
If you're by yourself, some little tiny thing like that can happen, and then you're just done.
Yeah, and I mean, and those things just do happen. We all know it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
I recently threw my back out just like turning around, and I was like, what, you know? And like, you know, I'm not like out of shape necessarily. I just, you know, did something weird and tweaked it. And and I would hate for like that next 20 minutes after that happened to be when somebody tries to chase me down, you know, because there you go, it's over. So, so let's see here. I do know that we've got some more people asking for stuff here in the chat. No, I don't believe Mike is in the Discord because Mike just told us like he doesn't really Discord. So there's that.
No. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It's just I'm not technological, so I've heard the term before. I honestly don't know anything about it. So yeah, no. I would be interested in joining. I just don't know anything about it yet. I got to learn.
Yeah, no worries. And honestly, look, man, I have a huge learning curve there as well. So, don't pretend for a second I didn't have a lot of help with getting everything set up, but I do know that it is a viable platform for communication, at least when it comes to networking with large groups of people. So, say Jesus Moreno says, I have stuff. I hope I find a group to work with. And I think that's a lot of people's, they might have some stuff, and it's awesome. And, I'm glad that you have that. And trying to find the people is tough. And a lot of people ask me that. I've gotten emails and stuff like that too about, how are you finding people to network with? How are you finding these communities? And I always give the same advice, but I just want you guys to understand, my best luck has been going to gun shops, going to firearms ranges, training of some kind. And a lot of people have a lot of luck going to like church or their place of worship or whatever it is that they practice. A lot of people find people in those types of activities because it's just where a lot of like-minded people tend to be. When you're at the gun store and you're hanging out there regularly enough to have conversations with the clerks, which is definitely something that happens to me. Then you tend to meet people and you tend to find out more and start talking, and that's just kind of where it goes. But a big part of it also is that you have to talk. You can't just go places and wait for somebody to reach out to you and say, hey, are you a prepper? Because it just doesn't work that way, You could start a YouTube channel and then hope that people might just know who you are. That might work sometimes. But that can also be like a weird experience too. So
yeah, did you hear, what was it? I think it was Prepper Princess. Did you hear about her story?
No.
Oh man, I remember watching her channel sometimes. She was always talking about moving from California. So she finally did. She moved from California to Arizona, but during her videos, she would show inside her house different times and stuff like that. Thought nothing of it. Then she listed her house for sale. Somebody tracked her down, found her house, came to her front door because they matched the pictures and the backgrounds of her videos to her pictures for the home listing.
Wow.
And I don't think it turned out, I forget exactly. I don't think it turned out to be like a really bad thing, but it was an eye-opening kind of potentially scary thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, that does happen. And like, I now that you mention it, I think I do remember at least hearing about that situation. But that stuff happens. Yeah. I mean, a Full Spectrum Survival recently talked about like a delivery driver acting weird on their property and, being like, I know what you got, I know what you do here. And it's like, okay, well, you're not coming back here now,
Yeah.
But it is part of the deal. But, it's you're weighing things out, I hope that, anybody who'd be wanting to, interact with me and stuff in person is because, I'm helping them prepare or they're interested in the topic or whatever it is, And I guess at least when it comes to being on this platform, you and I are guys who have given up quite a bit of our OPSEC and put ourselves out there, on video, talking about things, showing gear and equipment and all kinds of stuff. And I think that, that's probably not the best idea for everyone. I would say, like, probably don't do that if you're worried about OPSEC. But I hope that it helps people, and I hope it gives people things to consider and think about. So there's sacrifice involved, there's risk involved, but there's also a lot of reward and benefit, because without doing the YouTube thing and being on this platform, I wouldn't have met hardly any of the people I've networked with. I wouldn't have had excellent connections with people like yourself and other creators out there, as well as people even in my local area who I didn't know before who reached out to me because of being on here. So there's a lot of like really good positives involved too. It's a trade-off, definitely.
Yeah, there always has to be people willing to stand up and put their face out there, just like founding fathers. They had to have somebody had to initially stand up, kind of the same thing, except for it's just, somebody has to be out here doing this, providing information so that people can learn. And like you said earlier, growing the entire community is good because, I don't know everything. I don't articulate everything as well as other people. I may be one of those people that you connect with and you can understand my point of view, how I present myself and present the information. Great. Other people, maybe your channel or other channels. And that's why I think that people should watch a bunch of different channels anyway, just to get different ways to do things and different ways to look at things and different ways to approach things, because we all know that we've all had issues or some time in our life when you're looking at a problem and you're trying to figure it out, and then somebody from the side, somebody else looks at it and goes, oh, do this, and you're like, oh, why didn't I see that?
Yeah.
Same concept. Yeah, same idea.
Well, and what I'll say is, in case anybody wants to know some correlations between Mike and I's channels, one thing we definitely have in common that I think a lot of you guys can appreciate is that we love doing loadouts, and like loadout videos and stuff like that. And Mike has had some really good loadout videos from a while back where it goes through all the gear, the equipment, the ideas behind it. Mike, I'm pretty sure you paint your rifles and stuff like that, right? Kind of get everything looking uniform and good for your area and your terrain. But that's what's cool is like one of the reasons why I started watching Mike back in the day was because I like loadout stuff. I'm like, what does that guy have? What is she carrying? What's like the next good piece of gear to get out there and try out. So I think that's something that we both have done and we both have, and I think it's cool that it's not just like a one-off thing. It's about sharing your thoughts, sharing your experience, saying, hey, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, I like this, I don't like that. And then people like myself being able to watch and go, hey, I like that thing he just did with that one piece of gear. And even if it's just like that one thing that I see that I get gear from, that was worth watching the video,
Mm-hmm.
So definitely if you guys are into like loadouts and stuff, Mike's channel is definitely a good place to go as well. And I think I remember this from a while back, but your concept, a lot of kind of like what you emulate or put out there is like the militant farmer idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
oh, sorry, go.
I was just gonna say, can you kind of explain that concept to everybody?
Okay, yeah, it's just basically comes from. I did not coin the phrase. I picked it up somewhere. I forget where I picked it up, but it's the idea that mainly I just want to grow my garden, raise my animals, play with my kids, and be left alone. But if time comes, I will pick up my gear, I will don my rifle, and I will defend what I have to defend. Basically the same thing our founding fathers, and not necessarily the founding fathers, but the people that fought for our country, that earned our independence, were just farmers. They were ranchers, they were lawyers, they were doctors, whoever they were, blacksmiths, different trades. They were just anybody and everyday normal people that just had enough. So I would like to not go into that phase of things. I would like to just do the gardening and having fun, preparedness and stuff like that. But recognizing having the ability to go militant is very important, whether it's in defensive role, whether it evolves into needing to make offensive operations. Having the capability is definitely better than not having the capability.
I agree. It's kind of an interesting concept because it combines two things that are very important to preparedness in general. Your ability to provide food for your family and yourself, your ability to, grow your own calories, right? Something that I know Bear Independence says, and then your ability to defend what it is that you grow and defend what it is that you're protecting, and also your ability to take the fight elsewhere. Because I think that's something that that's a concept that, we generally talk about the idea of bugging in, staying in our location. That's the best place to be. But then there's always been that kind of lingering concept as well that you don't want things to be in your backyard, right? You don't want anything to show up at your front door. And so that is not a territory where we want to be at and not something that we want to see happen. But I think that there is still a consideration there that everybody has to kind of make to say, okay, well, there might be a time where I don't want what's happening to come down my street. But in order to stop it from coming down my street, I might have to leave or go somewhere,
For example, we may have to, some people are heading to the border to help with what's going on down there. Sometimes you got to take the fight somewhere else.
Right.
So,
right. And it's all based on, your situation, what's going to put you and your family at a better scenario, and that's when it becomes hard to kind of make those decisions. So that's why we as preppers, and like you said earlier on in the stream, it's all about planning. And part of that planning is contingency planning and having those ideas already kind of hashed out. Like, okay, what situation actually makes me have to leave in order to stop a threat from getting closer, or whatever it might be. And those are all things everyone should be kind of working on now, especially I would say more so in relation to like a financial scenario. Like if you're not planning what to do when you lose your job, like you're not doing yourself a favor right now, because there's a million reasons why you could just not have a job tomorrow, and they're not all based on decisions you may or may not make. I think that if you have no plan for what you'll do if you don't have that income tomorrow, then you really need to start working on that right away, because the way our economy is going, there's no reason a business couldn't just close tomorrow without telling anybody. I mean, that's the route a lot of things are going. Jobs are being left in droves because of a lot of reasons, and regardless of like anyone's agreements or disagreements with that scenario, it is going to cause a lot of businesses to go out of business, which actually eliminates more jobs from the market, which means that there might not be a return for that amount of people to come back to the labor force at any point in time soon. And then that causes its own situation. So I just think financially right now is where you should have contingency plans, plan B, plan C, and don't. I mean, if anyone learned anything from 2020, please do not assume your job is stable, or that you have a guaranteed income, or that you're set for life if you just stay where you are for the next 20 years. I mean, at this point, planning for the next 20 years almost seems irrational in some ways. Like 10 years ago, it's like, yeah, 20 years from now, we'll be sitting pretty doing this and that. But like now, it's like, man, 20 years, like I don't even know about the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So let's get back in the chat for a second. Mona Sheep Prepping, good to see you. I think you're heading out, so I appreciate you being here. The Roaming Prepper, good to see you as well. Awesome that more people are jumping into the chat. Let's see here. Yes, and and people are mentioning this, and like Arkansas whoop ass is saying this, and yes, a lot of things are going to change, or there's going to be a big shift once more and more mandates go into effect. We know that it's going to affect the labor market. It's going to affect just people's livelihoods, which pushes people towards different aspects of desperation and stuff like that. So I think there is a lot that we have to keep an eye out for when it comes to that. But I mean, I don't know.
One thing about that, the federal workers and stuff, is that was my job prior to becoming unemployed. Was civil service. And I'll tell you what, in my office of say 20 people, I know for a fact at least 5, maybe 8 of them will either be walking away or getting fired. So we're talking almost a third, at least, almost a third of the workforce, potentially, they could be losing it. And that workforce is the workforce that does the work on our naval ships and allows them to go to sea to protect our nation. So if we're losing all those people, we're not going to be able to put ships to sea. We're not going to be able to defend our nation because they're pushing this down our throats. So that leaves, and I'm just saying a third, maybe it's only a 10th, maybe it's only a 20th. It doesn't matter. It's still going to impact our ability, our national security, and it's going to weaken our nation. Not even to mention the fact that I'm sure people have heard in the military getting the jab. Okay, well, a lot of people are like, okay, well, it sounds like, a lot of the people are staying in the military. Some are getting out, sure. Some are being forced out, sure. But let me just throw a little wrench in the equation here, a little seed for you guys to think about. Special operations community is manned with very, very intelligent, highly awake people that believe in freedom. So if any community in the military is going to be affected, our special operations forces are going to be decimated by the fact that a lot of them will not play the game. They will not drink that flavor soda, aka, So there's going to be some effects from this.
Well, and that's, I mean, we're already seeing that in the airline industry right now, where it's, I mean, there's been reports that it's like becoming less safe to travel by air because there's not as many workers to make sure maintenance is being done properly, and there's not enough people working in general for airfare, and it's causing, safety concerns. And I mean, that might just be more rhetoric from the media, but at the same time, I mean, it makes sense. The less people you have working, the less can be done in a day. And when it comes to airlines, I mean, maintenance is huge. And if they're having less people maintaining those airlines, then I mean, how trustworthy are they? And it's hand in hand with the fact that it's an aging airline industry. I mean, how many of those planes are 10, 20, 30 years old? So I mean, this is just all going to kind of compound. And as incompetent as certain groups of the government seem to be, a lot of that is probably exaggerated for our consumption in order for us to not assume that they really could make these decisions without just being incompetent. Clearly they're making decisions for certain reasons in order to move things forward in a certain way. It's pretty clear at this point.
Yeah.
And Mike H. Super chat.
Oh yeah. Thank you guys for supporting Magic here. That's awesome. Your super chats are really, really awesome. JB, I think it was, said something about I guess he's directed at me before I talk about military. Know what I'm talking about? Thank you, JB. I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Hey, you said it.
I have a lot of ties. I still am very connected to military community. And I'm also speaking though, JB, just to not come across an a-hole. I'm not trying to be an a-hole. I'm speaking from one branch of the military. I don't have knowledge of all the entire military. However, I do know a lot of different things that kind of cross over from different branches. But it is it's going to affect our military. I mean, period. Whether it's a massive effect, hopefully it's not, but it will. And the thing is, what's scary to me is who will be left in place in the military. Who will be left in place are people that don't believe in free will, or people that don't believe in freedom, or people that believe in they just do what they're told. Like the people that worked at Dachau and Nuremberg, they were just doing their jobs when they were gassing millions of Jews. That's not okay with me. I think we need to stand up for freedom. I think we need to make a stand. I think whether you want the jab or not, it doesn't matter. You should stand for the free will and the freedom of choice of other people in this country. Sorry for my little rant.
No, I mean, it's all good, man. That's why you're on the show. I mean, I want people to hear your point of view and, hear, what kind of a person you are in order to, apply that to their preparedness and their thought process. I mean, I think, the big part of the preparedness community and something that's very important to all of us is the idea of freedom. And that's what prepping is basically pushing towards, right? My ability to be free of worrying about if somebody else is going to have control over my ability to eat or live comfortably or have a roof over my head or all of those things. So preparedness is a huge amount of leverage with maintaining that freedom. And that's something that I think is why so many of us here in this community are passionate about what's happening these days. Because like you said, it's all about choice. It's not about, this or that, because there's so much conversation about that. But in reality, like, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is just people being able to make those decisions on their own without fear of ramifications. And one thing I'll say that was very interesting is that, and I think everybody should look this up, but it's up to you if you want to, because every state is different. But at least here in North Dakota, there's a lot of code within the law that protects people from certain things like some of these mandates, right? But the wording isn't there that's specific, but it has wording that applies to the current situation involving things like An employer can't intimidate somebody to do something against their will with fear of losing their position or whatever it might be. And, you know, we can easily apply a lot of these different concepts to what's happening right now. And, you know, in a court of law, you know, do you have that on your side? Is it going to hold up? That's where things really get tested. But there's a lot of law already out there that protect people from what's happening right now. They just might not be aware of it, or, you know, haven't had somebody go through the legal process yet for it to be shown, you know. But there's, you know, as bad as things have gotten, and as un-American as some of the things that are happening are, I think it's easy to forget that there are actually laws in place that do protect us from these types of things. We just have to be aware of them, and that's a lot of what is difficult in this country, because, you know, it's like, it reminds me of the conversation when you talk to like a new gun owner, let's say, and they say, you know, is this allowed? And it's like, that's not how this works. If there's a law, it's prohibiting something. If there's no law, it's not prohibited. So it's like it gets people caught off guard, because basically they want a law that tells them what they can do, right? And then that's the wrong thought process. But that's what people look for generally, is like, what am I allowed to do versus what am I told I can't? And I think that that's something, you know, and I apply it to new gun owners, because that's a pretty common thing. Well, let me look up what I'm allowed to do. Am I allowed to carry, or am I allowed to do this? And it's actually, you know, the other way around. You're supposed to be aware of what you're not allowed to do. And I think that's kind of why, as a society as a whole, we don't know about a lot of these laws that protect us already, because we're just worried about, you know, what we're not allowed to do, you know? So
well, I just noticed Brian Soneman, I think is how you pronounce it. He thanked me for having spine, for, you know, being able to speak out. I've been thinking about, I talked about it a little bit on my Patreon, but I think I might go ahead and do the YouTube video also. The other day I'll tell a quick little rundown, just a little recap. I was at St. Vincent de Paul, trying to see if I could find some budget prepper scores the other day, so I could do a video, you know, and increase my preparedness. So anyway, it came down. They always have the sign, and here in Washington, every business says you have to wear a mask to come in. Well, I don't, and usually they don't say anything. Most people wearing masks, unfortunately. But I was in St. Vincent de Paul, and they basically told me that I have to leave if I didn't wear a mask. At that point, okay, what my brain was telling me to say was, oh, okay, I'll go give my business somewhere else. What actually came out of my mouth, I don't know what happened. It was, whether it was the Holy Spirit, whether it was Thomas Jefferson entering my body. I gave this like 10 minute long dissertation, looking around loudly to the whole store, looking at people, meeting eyes, challenging them to throw off the reins of tyranny, to you know, to not accept to not give away their freedom for safety and stuff like that. And it was much more eloquent than I'll be able to recap, but it was amazing.
So it always works.
And I just called them all out, and I was basically yelling in the middle of the store, and everybody heard me. They're all sitting there, and if you could see their mouths hit the floor, if they weren't wearing masks, you would have seen their jaws hit the floor. It was amazing. It wasn't me speaking. I don't know how. Like I said, if I did a video telling about it, I could never be as eloquent as I was that day. But for some reason, it just came over me. I did it. And at the end, I said something like, who's with me? And there were 5 people, 5 guys that ripped their mask off, threw them on the floor, and said, "Hoo-yah, America!" And they walked out with me. And then we had a good chat in the parking lot. And that's what we need. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying I'm the person that's going to be doing it all the time, but that came across me at that moment. If more people would do things like that, I think maybe more eyes would be opened to the fact that these kind of things are not okay.
Well, and honestly, often you just need the first person, right, for other people to grow the spine, or whatever it is you want to call it. Because, then suddenly there's a comfort level of knowing that somebody else is willing to go the distance, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's, and that's like what an unfortunate situation to be in, where you have to even be in that position. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like that's what's going to get people to change their mind. You know?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is one of the points I made to them was, I said, wait a sec. I'm like, I'm in St. Vincent de Paul, a faith-based organization, and you're telling me that you are trying to violate my God-given free will? How hypocritical is that? You know, I couldn't believe it.
Plus, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I would assume a thrift store might not be the most sanitary place either. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah, I get it.
So, and you know, I've had my share of thrifting. Trust me on that. And that's why I can say that from experience. But, but yeah, no, it's just where we've gotten to, you know, and I just feel like, you know, your situation kind of describes how a lot of people feel right now, where the backs are against the wall. You know, people are being put in that corner, and eventually people want to get out of the corner, and they snap at a certain point even. You know, I'm not saying you snap, but what I'm trying to say is that that's the reaction that is being forced upon people at a certain point. And that's kind of what worries me about the direction we're heading. When you see the things that are happening at these school board meetings, and you see the things that are happening around the country, and, you know, and now people are, you know, being threatened and all kinds of stuff. And it's like, look, man, this is going to maintain conversation level only for a certain amount of time. And, you know, and at some point people react in a way that's not acceptable, but it is what it is, because I just feel like, you know, you poke the bear, you know, I mean, that's all it is. It's the cliche. And you poke the bear enough, and the bear eventually wakes up. And that's what I'm concerned about, to be honest with you, because I don't think that's something we all want to see. I don't want to see it happen. I think I'd rather see a peaceful transition back to logic, you know, but that's also, I don't know, what's the word? Naive to think that that's just going to happen. You know, I think that they're going to keep pushing until they have a reason to push harder, which that reaction is what's going to drive that reason. And that's what really worries me, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you get people that totally you would never expect coming out of their mouth mentioning that they don't think that this is going to be solved peacefully, then, you know, like my own mother is very conservative. She is a little more Republican than me, I guess is what you'd want to say it. I am a constitutional conservative, period. I don't call myself a Republican, Democrat, none of that stuff. I'm a constitutional conservative. And even my mother is talking about things like not having a peaceful resolution, not, you know, losing the ability to peacefully move forward due to voter fraud, due to whatever. Because, you know, it's when people like that are, you know, that aren't on the fringes, that aren't far left or far right, when you get average people in the middle waking up to the fact and realizing and saying things like that, then, you know, we're headed for trouble.
Well, and you know, one thing I'll say, Mike, and I think that's a good thing you brought up, and I just punched my desk in the face apparently, but one thing I'll say is that I think that's a good concept for you to kind of to be at. And what I mean by that is not falling into the dichotomy of, you know, the two political parties, not falling into that system as being the black and white situation that's being presented to us. You know, I think it's important to maintain an open mind and maintain a level of independence from that concept in order to make better decisions, you know, based on your personal situation, rather than just being spoon-fed everything to you from, you know, one or two different sources. And I think that that's shown, you know, in recent time, that it just that the whole situation isn't the way things are going to be, you know, best for everyone. And I mean, the level of ineffectiveness from one side, the level of hypocrisy from another. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And it's like, you know, I think we all know deep down that there is a better way, but it just doesn't exist right now. And I think that's, you know, kind of like, unfortunately, what's put us in the position we're in. So, And Shadow Scout Tweet says, and we're facing a food crisis in maybe 2 months from now. And, one thing I'll say about that, and I think we're going to start wrapping it up here, Mike, so I'll let you get a last word in here too, just so you know. But, and it's about in Sweden, the Swedish farmers' costs have increased because of fuel and fertilizer and other necessary things. So now they're about to face a food crisis. But what I'll say is that I think we're all facing a food crisis already, in all honesty. I just don't think that it's right in our face. We're not starving yet. We're not unable to get groceries yet. We're not we're not desperate yet, so it doesn't feel like one. But when you really look at what's happening and you really start reading into the information that's out there about the supply chain crisis, and you start looking into what the grocers are even telling people, like, we're in a food crisis. It's just that our logistics system is doing the best job it can at trying to keep us from panicking in many ways. And you'll see that in the grocery stores where they're facing everything and stocking everything to the front to make it look as full as possible. But then you realize that 4, sections of the soup aisle are all cream of mushroom soup. Like it's one soup, but it's the entire section, and that's when you really start looking at things and going, okay, wait a second, this is odd. This isn't how it usually is. And I think they're doing a great job of making us feel good. But I don't think that, if you really start reading into it, that you're going to be fooled. So Mike, like I said, I think it's about time to start wrapping it up. We're at 1 hour and 15 minutes. Like I said, Asymmetrical Preparedness, great channel. Mods, if you can please make sure to plug the channel in the chat. But if you want daily prepping advice, Mike's got it. He's always going to have that for you. Obviously, a very patriotic guy, a very passionate guy, especially when it comes to freedom, the Constitution, and everything related to that, while also being very preparedness minded. What would you tell everybody as just kind of like a closing thing, Mike, when it comes to like urgency related to preparedness right now, just kind of based on the way things are,
Well, the big urgency, if you're coming here from my channel, is to subscribe to Magic Prepper.
All right.
No, seriously. Seriously, do that. But seriously, I think I forget who. I was watching some prepper channel because a lot of good ones, and they were talking about food being power.
Sounds like Alaskan prepper.
Yeah, it was either Alaskan prepper or maybe it was, I think it might have been an older TJ Bear Independent video, because what I do sometimes is I go back through and I try to watch older stuff. I watch even some of my older stuff, to see, have things changed? Do I have more input to add? Can I better articulate what I was talking about? What other people were talking about also? Because I know you know what it's like trying to get those creative juices flowing and to put out constant, content all the time and stuff like that. And the way I look at it is it's not plagiarizing. I don't mind if somebody comes to my channel and watches one of my videos and then, does a video about it and, and puts their spin on it, because we all do that. We all can just put our spin on it. And it helps sometimes having the community out there, a good community like you, like other channels out there, so that I can go to them also and as a source of information and as a source of motivation for me putting out content, also giving me ideas. I think it's important. So I guess that's what okay, sorry, I kind of got off track. The urgency, okay. The urgency I feel is food and water. I mean, simple things, the boring things, not the cool tactical loadouts, not the cool stuff that I want to talk about, that I love, that that I'm really into. It's the boring, mundane stuff like food and water that is going to keep us free. No army can fight without having its belly full. I mean, we've all heard that saying before, as well as, we got to be able to provide for our families and be ready for whatever comes. So simple is just the bare bones, basic food and water. I think there's a lot to it. Like you said before, preparedness is a ginormous topic that you could almost turn almost anything into being applicable to preparedness. But just like what makes a special operations soldier good, or is the complete and utter mastery of the basics. It's not all the fancy stuff. The fancy stuff helps them, yes. But as a prepper, if you really want to be prepared, it's the basics. You got to stick to the basics.
I think that's good advice. And at the end of the day, yeah, food and water. I mean, it keeps you free and it keeps you out of risk and harm for longer periods of time. You know, if you can buy that time and have that water and have that food and not go out while things are dangerous, I mean, that's going to be the difference of getting through sometimes. So that's awesome. And look, man, like I appreciate what you do. Hard working, man. You're always putting out content. And I remember way back when 2019, I did a video and a video response to you because you had a video that was like top 3 SHTF events, right? And so I remember making that video. Yeah, and I remember like I had my AR on and all kinds of stuff because I was like I'm gonna look like Mike for this video. So, but it was a good time, and like those were the good old days, you know, back before March 2020, back when we were just talking about basic preparedness, and then things got a little more urgent, and then things got a little bit more escalated, and then and now we're in a position where it's like, man, I didn't think, you know, the stuff we were talking about was gonna be right in our faces, and here we are. So you know, I'm just glad that more people are out there like yourself that are trying to spread the word, get people prepared, and at the same time, like just being another prepared person, because that's huge. Knowing that, you know, you over here on the West Coast and me over here in the Midwest, it's just 2 more people that are prepared that we don't have to worry about causing problems down the road, you know?
Yep, exactly.
So let's grow the network, you know, let's grow the community. And I hope everybody had a good time tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here. If I didn't get to say hi to you or see your question, I apologize, but sometimes, you know, it's hard to keep up on that. So I appreciate your patience. And then if anybody ever needs anything, magicprepper.com is a good place to go. And make sure you check out Mike over on Asymmetrical Preparedness. Check those videos out. Definitely a good information source. And Mike, I got to do my thing because that's just what I got to do every time. But that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.